At this wedding we went to, I spent the entire night watching my wife glued to her so-called best friend, a guy, while I was left sitting on the sidelines like I wasn't even there. At one point, somebody asked her if she was married, and instead of proudly pointing to me, she laughed and said, "Not really. Doesn't count when he's boring." They all chuckled along with her, and I just stood there, staring, feeling like I'd been kicked in the chest. By the time the morning rolled around, she woke up alone. That was it. My marriage ended on a Saturday night in the middle of a fancy hotel ballroom. Not with a screaming match or a dramatic fight, but with a cruel little laugh. Her laugh, that fake, sharp sound, told me more than any long argument ever could. Let me rewind for a second. My name's Daniel. My wife, well, technically my ex-wife now, is Harper. We were married for 4 years. On the outside, it probably looked like we had it together. Nice house, good cars, everything people assume equals happiness. But the truth was different. Underneath, the cracks had been spreading for a while, and I'd been noticing them. I tend to pick up on things most people overlook. And what I noticed most was Lucas. Lucas was the best friend. The guy she always called her brother. In the beginning, I tried to play it cool. I convinced myself their history was nothing but old memories. For the first couple of years, I trusted her. But once we got married, something in her shifted. She carried herself with this sense of entitlement, and the respect she used to show me seemed to shrink more and more. What used to be little warning signs off in the distance turned into big, flashing alarms right in my face. Constant texting. Angling her phone away so I couldn't see the screen whenever his name popped up. Dropping his name into every conversation, holding him up as the standard. Lucas would have done this, Lucas would have said that. The moment I realized I had to start preparing for the end was about 8 months ago. I'd been planning a getaway for our anniversary, something quiet and romantic. A cabin in the mountains, just the two of us, the kind of trip we used to love. I showed her the place I'd found, expecting at least a smile. Instead, she acted underwhelmed, like I'd suggested a night at a budget motel. The very next day, she came back with her better idea, except it wasn't hers. It was Lucas's. He thought we should go to some flashy new resort on the coast. And instead of suggesting it like a compromise, she presented it as a done deal. My plans didn't matter anymore, so we went to the resort. For 4 days, I watched her send picture after picture to Lucas, updating him on the view like he was the one there with her. That's when it clicked. I wasn't being a trusting husband. I was being a backup, a provider, the guy making sure the bills were paid while she lived out her exciting little world with everyone else. That's when I stopped being her doormat. Quietly, of course. I'm not a dramatic guy. She's the performer, not me. I'm a planner. So I started preparing. My first move was a consultation with a lawyer a friend recommended. A sharp, no-nonsense guy who laid out exactly what I needed to know. The house was already in my name, bought before I ever met her, and that was the most important piece of the puzzle. He explained how to protect my other assets, and I wasted no time. The next day, I opened new accounts at a different bank, funneled most of my income there, and left just enough in our shared account so nothing would look suspicious. Piece by piece, I was building my escape route. That wedding last Saturday became the tipping point. It was for one of Harper's college friends, big, extravagant, expensive. Exactly her scene. She thrived in that environment, surrounded by an audience. She'd even bought a brand new dress for the occasion. One she bragged about being a little pricey, before casually swiping it onto our joint card. All night, she clung to Lucas, laughing too loud, making a spectacle on the dance floor. I didn't fight for her attention. I wasn't there to compete anymore. I was there to watch, to gather proof for myself. Something in my gut told me that night would seal it. Around 10, I was at the bar, making small talk with the groom's uncle, when I noticed Harper across the room with Lucas and a few strangers. One woman pointed at Harper's wedding ring and asked if she and Lucas were married. That should have been the easiest question in the world. She could have just said no and gestured toward me, her husband, standing a few feet away. Instead, she turned it into a performance. She let out this fake laugh, pitched way too high, and said, "Oh, I'm married, but not to Lucas, unfortunately." Then she leaned in, lowering her voice like she was sharing some juicy secret, and added, "Not really though. Doesn't count when he's boring." The group laughed along, not the kind of laugh that's warm or friendly, but the kind that stings. And right there, In that moment, I felt no explosion of anger. Just this cold, steady wave of clarity. It was the final confirmation I'd been waiting on. This wasn't a marriage. This was a joke, and I was the punchline. I didn't confront her. I didn't yell. I just caught her eye across the room and gave her a little nod. To her, it probably looked like I was being supportive, but it wasn't. It was me saying, "Message received." Then I turned around, walked straight out of that ballroom, and headed to our hotel room. The celebration was over. So was our marriage. It was time to set my plan in motion. The very first thing I did upstairs was slip my wedding band off my finger and set it on the dresser. I stared at it for a minute, and honestly, it felt like I was peeling off a mask I'd been forced to wear. Then I started packing. Every movement was calm and steady. I wasn't reacting out of emotion. I was simply following the steps I'd rehearsed in my head for months. By midnight, I checked out of the hotel, grabbed my car, and hit the road. No radio, no distractions. Just silence. That 40-minute drive home was the most peaceful stretch of time I'd had in years. The heavy weight of pretending, of swallowing her constant little jabs and disrespect, was finally lifting. I pulled into my driveway around 11:30. My driveway, my house. First priority, lock it down. I went straight to the smart home system in the kitchen, pulled up the user settings, and erased her profile. Just like that, her code and her key fob were useless. Then I reset the garage entry code. In 5 minutes, she was officially locked out. Next, I cut off the money. I logged into our joint account, the one I kept topped off for her shopping, car payments, lunches with friends. A few $1,000s sat in there. I transferred every penny into my private account. Then I opened my main credit card online, the one she used with her own little supplementary card. I combed through the charges, the overpriced dress, the spa trip with Lucas's sister, the new luggage she bought for her upcoming girls' getaway. I reported her card stolen, and within seconds it was frozen. Her safety net was gone. Then came the long part, her belongings. I'd bought stacks of flat-packed moving boxes weeks ago, just for this. For the next 3 hours, I boxed up every trace of her. Closet full of clothes? Packed. Bathroom vanity loaded with beauty products? Gone. Home office, shelves, shoes, all of it. I taped up each box and stacked them neatly in the garage. I didn't cry, didn't rage. I felt detached, like I was clearing out an estate after someone had already moved on. By 3 in the morning, I fired off a 2-word email to my lawyer. File it. Then I went to bed and, for the first time in over a year, slept straight through the night. The next day, the calls began. At first, she sounded cheerful, thinking I'd just gone to work early. An hour later, her tone shifted to angry confusion. Her card had been declined when she tried to cover breakfast for her and Lucas. By the third call, it was full-blown panic. She was on the porch, locked out, realizing her access was gone. That's the one I finally decided to answer. "Daniel, what the hell is going on? I'm locked out." She screamed through the door. "I know," I replied, flat and calm. "What do you mean, this isn't funny. Open the door and let me in." "No," I said, my voice cold, steady. "I heard what you said last night, Harper. Every word. You told people our marriage didn't count because I'm boring. So here's me doing you a favor, making life a little more exciting. Congratulations. You're free now. No boring husband. No boring house." She immediately started backpedaling. Of course, it was just a joke. I was being paranoid. I misunderstood. "It doesn't matter." I cut her off. "It's already done. Every one of your things is packed." 42 boxes stacked neatly in the garage. A moving company's coming Danieloro to haul them to a storage unit. Rent's covered for 3 months. I'll text you the details when it's set. The joint account's empty. The credit card's canceled. The divorce papers will be served Monday. We're finished. In the background, I could hear Lucas, her knight in shining armor, muttering that I was bluffing, saying I was just being dramatic. He'd been the one to drive her home. "You can't do this to me," she cried. "I already did," I said. "Have a nice life." I hung up, blocked both of their numbers, and leaned back. Phase 1 was complete. Update 2. Naturally, they didn't just slink away. People like Harper and Lucas never accept consequences quietly. They have to twist the story until they look like the victims. For a while, they just loitered outside. My security cameras caught everything. Harper tugging at the doors, Lucas puffing out his chest and trying to look tough, like he was in some bad movie. He even tried shoulder-checking the front door once, before realizing solid oak doesn't budge just because you want it to. When the movers came the next day, they parked across the street in Lucas's car, sulking and watching. I made a point of walking out to grab the mail, then spent 20 minutes weeding the front garden while pretending they didn't exist. My indifference burned them more than if I'd screamed. I could feel their eyes on me, but I gave them nothing. When brute force didn't work, they switched to what Harper did best, information warfare. By the next day, the rumors had started. Suddenly, I was the villain. The jealous, controlling husband who snapped because his wife had a male friend. According to their version, I had some kind of breakdown at the wedding, flew into a rage, and kicked Harper out of her own house. It was polished, believable, and a few people bought into it. The first attack came from her mother. She left me a long voicemail, crying, saying how ashamed she was of me, how Harper was devastated, and how I needed to be a man and fix what I had broken. I saved the message but didn't respond. Then came the texts from Harper's friends. Angry paragraphs accusing me of abuse, swearing they'd expose me. They thought they were cornering me. What they didn't realize was that I already had the truth in my back pocket. I just needed proof. Concrete, undeniable proof. And in 2025, there's always proof because everything gets recorded. Weddings especially. I didn't bother with the official videographer. Instead, I thought about who had been filming nonstop. The bride's younger cousin, Chloe. I remembered seeing her glued to her phone, capturing every moment for her Instagram. I found her account, sent her a message, and told her I was putting together a memory reel for the bride and groom. I asked if she'd share her clips. She happily sent me a folder full of videos. I combed through them for an hour until I struck gold. One video showed people dancing, but in the background, perfectly framed, was the scene at the bar. You could hear it crystal clear. The woman asking Harper if she was married. Harper's fake high-pitched laugh, and her exact words, "Not really anyway. It doesn't count when he's boring." There it was, my silver bullet. I clipped the 10-second audio and video. I wasn't about to plaster it all over the internet, that wasn't the plan. My plan was targeted, precise. I drafted a single group text. Recipients. The bride and groom, Harper's parents, her sister, and one more. Lucas's long-term girlfriend, Sophia. I'd met her before. Still had her number from a dinner party. The message was short and surgical. I know you've heard stories. Here's the truth. This clip is from the wedding on Saturday. The audio is what matters. This is why my marriage ended. I attached the video, pressed send, silenced my phone, and went for a long walk. Final update. 6 months later, the divorce is finalized. My lawyer said it was one of the fastest he'd ever processed. Turns out, a video of your wife publicly declaring your marriage doesn't count tends to erase her bargaining power. That 10-second clip didn't just end my marriage. It detonated Harper's entire world. The bride and groom? They were furious with her for poisoning their wedding with drama. They cut ties completely and even sent me an apology for what happened. Classy move. Her parents? That was the real spectacle. They live for appearances, and seeing their daughter humiliate herself on video was their worst nightmare. When she couldn't deny it, they pulled their financial and emotional support overnight. The lawyer they'd been paying for was fired. She was told point blank to get a job and take care of herself for once. Lucas's fallout was even worse. His girlfriend Sophia turned into a one-woman wrecking crew. She didn't just dump him. She posted the video publicly, tagging them both, and wrote a long, scathing post about the years of lies and disrespect. It spread like wildfire. Their smear campaign against me vanished overnight, replaced by their public shaming. Sophia's father, a respected businessman, made a few calls of his own. Lucas's sales career, which relied entirely on networking and reputation, crumbled within weeks. As for Harper, from what I've gathered, her life unraveled completely. The money's gone. Her parents barely speak to her. Friends scattered. Lucas, the guy she thought was her escape hatch, wanted nothing to do with her once the heat turned up. She's working as a waitress now, crammed into a cheap apartment with 3 roommates. That glamorous life she thought she deserved? Gone. I sold the house. I didn't want to live in a museum of bad memories. Bought myself a smaller condo downtown with a great view. It's peaceful, quiet, mine. The truth is, the sweetest revenge wasn't locking her out or cutting her off financially. It was holding up a mirror. She and Lucas built their relationship on lies and disrespect, and all I had to do was show people the reflection. They couldn't handle it. She once called me boring. Maybe she was right, but boring means steady. It means honest. It means peaceful nights in my own home, not chaos and lies. She woke up alone in that hotel room 6 months ago. Truth is, she'd been alone in our marriage long before that. I just finally made it official.